Hi guys, in this video I wanted to talk about using runes versus using spells when on your way to the box. So by using spells, obviously I mean, using your melee attack, but using Exori, Exori Gran, Exori Min, Exori Mass, versus throwing avalanches or great fireballs, right? And before we get into it, I wanted to mention that this is mostly focusing on solo hunting, because when you're team hunting, the calculations are going to be very different, because when you're team hunting, it's more important to quickly get to the box so that your teammates can start dealing damage. When you're solo hunting, it's not as important if you're to the box late by a couple of seconds because you're stopping and casting spells. Before we dive into the numbers themselves, I just wanted to highlight the main advantages of using runes versus the main advantages of using spells. First of all, when it comes to the runes, there are two big advantages, you could say. First one is that you hit more monsters, right? It's easier to hit a larger number of monsters with the rune, which means you might potentially be doing more damage by hitting more monsters. And also by hitting more monsters, you increase your chances of proccing charms. So more charms will proc when you throw a rune versus when using spell in most cases. The second benefit is that it's easy. It's really easy to just throw a rune and aim it and hit as many monsters as possible, whereas it's a lot harder to be manipulating the monsters in such a way as to maximize the amount of monsters you can hit with Exori or Exori Gran while running to the box. On the other hand side, the benefit of using spells is one, that on average each hit will deal more damage, right? Obviously Exori Gran deal more damage than a rune throw. So if you can get a comparable amount of monsters near you to hit them with a spell, you will be dealing more damage. And also you will be leeching by a lot more. So the way the leech formula works, the fewer monsters you hit, effectively the higher the leech amount. And this is also because the damage of your spells is higher. In general, when using spells versus runes, you will be leeching by a lot more. So this will help you with your mana management, and it will help you with your life management as well. So to help with this exercise, I used Guild Stats damage calculator. I've put in a level 600 with 120 melee skill, with 185 melee skill with equipment and Utito, random weapon with 55 attack, and magic level 11. So those will be the values that we will use to work out the damages that we deal. So looking at the possible damage ranges for Exori Mass, Exori, and Exori Gran, we can see that the average hit from each of those will be 312, 360, and 725. This is the middle value of the possible ranges. And as we will be using all of those free spells, an equal amount, more or less, because that's more or less our usual rotation. If we take those three values, put together and divide them by 3, the average hit when using a spell will be 465. Now looking at the rune damage, the average rune damage will be somewhere around 154. Obviously, this is all approximate. We're not taking resistances into account, etc., etc. But this is just more or less, something to illustrate it. So, an average damage of 465 when we use a spell against a monster, and an average damage of 154 when we use a rune against a monster. So that is quite nicely, actually, around more or less 3 times more, which means that if we are throwing runes versus throwing spells, if we are concerned about damage only, we should be hitting 3 times more monsters with a rune for it to be worth to use runes over spells. Now, it is impossible to make a definite statement about how many monsters you will be able to hit with avalanche or spells when pulling to the box, but in general, an EK wants to make a box of 8 monsters, so you would probably never be pulling more than 8 monsters at a time, right? Because if there's 8 monsters, you're just going to stop and do the box. So I would say on average, you're probably going to be hitting 5, maybe 6 monsters with avalanches while you run into a pull at most. I think that's pretty fair. So we can maybe assume 6 monsters is what you're hitting with avalanches. Now, taking our previous calculation into account, that means you would only need to be hitting 2 monsters per rotation on your way to the box with spells to deal the same amount of damage. Now, I already mentioned the extra benefits of using both methods, which is extra charm proccing versus extra leech. So, you will have to decide what you prefer. But my personal opinion and my experience, at least when I play, shows that I'm definitely able to hit more than 2 monsters every 2 seconds while I'm coming to on my way to the box. I would say that I usually hit 3, maybe 4 monsters every 2 seconds while I'm luring to the box. So if we reverse this logic, for runes to be worth, in my opinion, more than spells when going to the box, you would have to be hitting between 9 and 12 monsters every 2 seconds with your rune. Now, I really do not think that is feasible or realistic. And as I mentioned, if you've got that many monsters on your screen, you're probably just stopping to do a box anyway. In addition to this, if you consider that the leech is higher when you're attacking with spells, and that it's easier to land your melee attacks, if the monsters are near you anyway, then my conclusion is that it's much better to be, stopping for a split second every couple of seconds to hit 2, 3, 4 monsters with your spell versus throwing runes. Now, this might not be a super popular take because I know that, at least from what I've seen, majority of EKs throw runes when they solo hunt. But I'm not so sure that that's quite the right way to play. I believe that it's better to be using spells. It's going to be it's going to give you more leech, and on average, it's going to deal more damage. So yeah, my findings and my recommendations is to use spells. Of course, like I mentioned at the very start of the video, this is mostly for solo hunting. In team hunting, the extra dimension of reaching the box faster comes into play. And I'm not going to really argue about that. If you're team hunting and you prefer using runes, I think that is probably fine. I don't think it's really going to be worth it to slow the pulls to be doing a little bit more damage when you're team hunting. But I think for solo hunting, if you don't do this and you don't try it, I highly recommend you trying to use spells instead of runes. I think you will find that it makes the hunt more comfortable due to the additional leech and due to the, most likely, the extra damage that you will deal. So yeah, that's all I have for you today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.